What are some common misconceptions about furries?
One of the most common misconceptions is that all furries are obsessed with sex and romance. In reality, the majority of furries lead normal, healthy lives and aren't interested in sexual activities or romantic relationships. Other misconceptions involve furries being childish or immature, when in fact, many furries are adults who have lives and careers. There's also the idea that furries are weird or strange, and while being a furry may be different than being an average person, it doesn't make them weird or strange. Ultimately, the furry community is diverse and accepting, so people should try to learn more about it before making assumptions.
What is the definition of a furry?
Someone who likes or draws anthropomorphic animals.
Okay. Okay.
Somebody that, definition at least for me, is somebody who dresses up or has
Why they got the Dead by Daylight?
the passion of dressing up as an animal.
Mm.
Or
What?
not
Why they
really
got
the
the Dead by
passion, but
Daylight feature?
enjoys the feel of
Probably
something
just
similar to cosplay.
Right. Cosplay.
Mine would be the same. Mine would be the same thing as Red Fox. They like to draw themselves or even associate themselves with anthropomorphic versions of animals and stuff like that. Or they don't categorize with zoophiles or pedophiles.
Mm.
Because that's fucked up.
A furry.
A person who identifies as an anthropomorphic animal, generally categorized as an animal that walks on two legs with human characteristics.
Good luck, I don't even.
Person that takes on more animalistic features like these.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that definition of a furry is somebody that has a good hobby of like seeing animals walking on two legs, talking like us and everything else.
In my opinion, well, it is definitely very loose one depending on who you ask, but anyone that has an interest in anthropomorphic characters generally is a good expression of, borrowing animalistic features, but, it's, there's a lot of variety that can happen with that.
How are VR chat furry not the same as other furries?
Well, in VR chat, furry avatars are just one of many different types of avatars that you can choose from. It's not necessarily any different than being a furry in real life, but in VR chat you can fully embody your furry persona and interact with other furries in a virtual environment. Some people may prefer the immersive experience of being a furry in VR chat because they can really get into character and feel like they're a part of a furry community. Ultimately, it's just another way to express yourself in a virtual world. Of course, like with any online community, there may be some differences in how furries are perceived within VR chat compared to real life. However, it's ultimately up to each individual to decide how they want to express themselves in the virtual world. And since VR chat is a place for people to explore new identities and connect with others who share their interests, being a furry is just one of many ways to do that.
Suits on, all that kind of shit, usually, though. So basically, I think that's kind of like the weird mix. I think that's why, for some people, they're unsure about it. I don't care. I'm in Oregon and such, and like most people don't give a fuck. They're gonna just tell you how they want it and how they like it, and if you don't like it, they're gonna come at you with pitchforks. So it's like, okay, you just move along.
And I guess a similar question that has come to mind is kind of from actually a video that I saw, and it was kind of like a quote unquote converting normies to the fandom. Have you ever done that yourself? Have you ever seen that happen?
We joke.
What's that?
Let's see. Well, I've had some friends that basically come up to me and such, and then they're like, hey, I'm not sure about like this stuff, but I'm wondering if you maybe have some models I could go around with and be around the people and everything. And I kind of shrug. I never go after people and be like, hey, you should start doing this. I'm like, no, it's any person's choice. But if they come up, and they just want to be kind of go around, hang out. I'm like, okay, sure, I will guide you. It's freaking cue in the Aladdin song here. But like,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to eavesdrop on y'all's conversation, but
yeah, no,
it sounded interesting, so I stopped. But yeah, we never like. I never.
Mhm.
I never like make people or like force them to be in the fandom. It's something that usually comes natural.
Yeah, like I had one buddy, like he tried it, but it ended up not being his thing. I mean, he really did try, but in the end, he's like, you know what? I prefer having my armor on, but you know what? I have no problem hanging out with these guys. These are cool. There's actually like most of the time I get the same comment of people saying basically that it's more fun and like more relaxing for the most part. Yeah, they find shitters, but the thing is, and I've told people this, it doesn't matter what community group, what kind of thing you go to, there's always going to be little shitters. It's just how are you going to deal with it? So, and I never had that problem.
Yeah,
That's a big thing. Or before I continue, look, Zero, I don't know if you heard earlier, but when I started talking to Mr. Harper, I was asking him, a few furry questions for video.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know that.
Oh, that's fine. I make my own videos, so actually, you'll probably be in mine.
I just make worlds. That's my whole thing. Models and worlds.
Well, I do models. I do worlds. I do YouTube. Right. I mostly educate people on the furry fandom because a lot of furries, especially VR furries, no offense, don't know what a furry is, and it's hard to explain what a furry is if you don't know yourself.
I know what it is. They always find me for some reason at VR cons and they chase me around and try to keep me in their part of the convention. I'm like, the thing is, I'll be like dressed up as Deadpool or something completely like not even a fuzzball thing. They're just like, you're with us. It's like they could just
be with us.
It's fun though.
I tell you what, I went to Dragon Con, and that was the most welcoming place as a furry I've ever been in. I went to the dance they had that night. There was like literally like people grabbing my arm, wanting me to dance with them, like left and right, like just different people, just like grabbing me, dance with me, dance with me. I was finally like sweating my ass off because I danced for like 3 hours in the suit, and I was like, no, I gotta sit down. People were bringing me water. It was crazy. I was like, holy shit.
I've had that problem.
Yeah. It was crazy. I mean, they weren't even furries though. They were just regular people. That's what shocked me because most of the time the stereotypical like person doesn't like furries because they think that we're malicious or like we're zoophiles or we're pedos or we do weird things, weird fetishes with our suits, which simply is not true. A lot of furries in the community are safe for work. Like 90% of my avatars are safe for work right now. Like I don't do.
It's literally that thing like I was saying. It's like it's the whole thing. It's like you have a fucking apple tree. Like most of them are great, but you're gonna have a few apples or a few of the ones
right.
that it's literally what happens is people target that one thing that stands out, even though a lot of people have like simple things. They'll point that one. So same thing with people thinking, oh, they're all unsafe for work. It's like nah, it's probably actually only a few. But everyone sees that and they think, oh, that's all of them. So it's whatever.
I mean, think about it this way. In the community, right? Once somebody's found out to be a zoophile or a pedophile or weird.
Oh, they're dead.
Yeah. The community literally sends out bulletins to each other. And they're like, hey, this guy, look out for him. And everybody like shuns him out. Yeah. So everybody shuns them out of the furry community. So they are no longer part of the main community. Even though it doesn't matter what they say they are no longer part of the community. Because we don't roll with any of that stuff. We never do. We never have. It's just like TV and like the news source and other people. Like they either find these one individual to interview and that's what represents us. You know what I mean? Or they get like misinformation and they twist it to their own narrative to make it like whatever it's supposed to be. What was that?
Yeah.
TV show NCIS. Yeah, Fox News.
Sorry, I'm having a joke. Sorry, from this comedian called Fluffy and shit right now. I'm supposed to go see him in a few weeks, actually.
And like a lot of people say that like we just go around like our conventions are just like orgies. They're not. A lot of them have really good dance competitions, actually. Like some of the best dancers I ever met were in fursuits.
They keep on trying. Like that's one thing I kind of trying to do something other than Deadpool, because I usually do a lot of like detailed stuff for that. But I don't, because now they find me, because they literally look for the one tall skinny Deadpool guy. It's like, there he is. I'm like, no.
Get him.
So yeah, so I'm trying to do something different so I can actually just kind of vibe this time around, because I actually haven't been to conventions in general for a bit because the whole like COVID thing and shit. Because my state rules just to get into them for a few years was ridiculous.
Oh,
it's literally
geez.
like you're having to sign your fucking
Yeah.
life away. So I'm like, you know what?
I remember Dragon Con was like I had to bring a negative COVID result within 3 days of the convention. And then I also had to travel.
Like
So somehow I had to get a negative pull and then make sure it was in enough time to drive to Atlanta to have the convention. I was like, Jesus Christ, just to get in.
But real quick, I know you probably have more questions and such, so let's get you to able to ask your stuff.
I mean, one of the things that came to mind when Alexander, you were talking about, it seems like you have a lot of experience with real life conventions and furry events, and you know, you also being on this game as well as being a trusted user. So it seems like you have a lot of experience on both sides of the furry fandom. And so I'm kind of curious, what do you think is kind of some of the biggest differences? Do you find the people to be the same? Do you think
No, well, you see, I've been doing professional art since 2011. I say professional because they pay my bills. But I've been doing professional art since 2011. Most of it is furry related. I've recently gotten into the last 3 years into avatar making, you know, retexturing and stuff, and also making a few of my own avatars. But like the difference between like what I would call fur affinity or a like an art user / fursuiter versus like your typical VR person is way different. Like they're the same vibe, if that makes sense, but they are two different categories.
And
yep.
I guess, you know, why would you put them into two different categories? Just like,
well, you can ask any one of the old traditional artists what a furry is, and they can tell you right off the bat the definition of a furry. And you can ask 90% of VR furries, and they have no idea what the definition is. Which is the whole reason why I started my YouTube, to educate more people through VR chat. Like, because when they ask these people, like when you ask somebody what a furry is, they will tell you the wrong answer because they don't know themselves.
yeah, I even ask people who wear a furry avatar, and then they just say, I'm not a furry, you know. So it's like, I mean, that happens more often than you might think. A lot of people just, you know, have the avatars but don't claim to be part of the fandom.
Yeah, a lot of people just like the avatars.
If I do what I like, and I like what I do. Because, like, I don't know, my whole thing is just that my thing is like I said earlier, I just like anthropomorphic stuff because I grew up around a lot of it growing up.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's the big of it.
Disney
You got
movie was
Robin
that.
Hood whenever you were little. You have all the Disney
God,
movies.
yeah.
I mean, if you watched any of the Disney movies, you were probably potentially a furry when you were a kid, if not growing up.
Yeah,
you
so
know
it's
what I
like,
mean?
that's my big
Daffy
thing.
Duck, Bugs Bunny. I mean,
Mickey Mouse?
the definition of a furry, right, is an interest in anthropomorphic animals, i.e. like Bugs Bunny and shit. That's all it is. That's the definition. That's what makes people a furry.
Anthropomorphic, is that like two-legged or like standing on two legs?
Well, it could mean like two, like anthropomorphic means 2 legs, yes, but like it also could mean like animals with like a human
traits,
traits, like
okay.
like Balto, right? You seen Balto, the movie?
No, I'm not too sure about that one.
What's another example that would be Garfield? Garfield.
Garfield, I know Garfield.
Yeah, that would be like a furry type thing.
That's a weird one because he goes back and forth.
Yeah,
Oh
he
my
goes
God.
back and
I
forth.
don't know why you said that. It flashed me back to like I found this was like when I was very young. I opened up one of the drawers to the one of my family's like dresser thing. I just found like a really old big pack of like Garfield comics.
Oh yeah.
Freaking just like skim through
Old
those
Garfield.
like all the time.
You know, and
yeah.
I mean the first like the first film with an anthropomorphic animal was like 1928. It was Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, that's true. I was kind of
I actually just watched that recently because it was on Disney Plus.
It's just funny that like people like denounce it so much, and they're like, you watch Disney, right? Your kids watch Disney. That's pretty much 90% of that is furry content because they're anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, someone may have realized that just like a few days ago. You know, when they you know, just exactly like your examples, you know, Mickey Mouse and all the Disney characters. So it seems like you've been in the fandom for quite a while, Deluxe Zero. You know, one of the terms that I kind of come across recently as well is called the quote-unquote furry awakening. And yeah, what's kind of how did you get started, or when did you kind of quote-unquote awaken?
Wow. It's always weird hearing the awakening part.
The awakening part. Well, I was in it at the beginning, but I mean, like, you know, like I said, like just Robin Hood, Disney. You know, when I was a kid, I used to draw comics. And I didn't even know what furries were, you know, back then. I just draw comics myself. I've got hundreds of comics me and my friend made with animals, you know, because we liked gargoyles, we liked Darkwing Duck, we liked, you know, Bugs Bunny. We liked all that shit. And, you know, and
so did you kind of always embrace it, or was there like a point in time where you were exposed to the word like, oh yeah, that sounds just like me, or just what I like?
Oh yeah, I mean, there was this comic back in the day called Genus Comics, and they actually introduced me to the fandom, and then I just sought out more of it, and I was like, yeah, this is, you know, and for the most part, the fandom is really cool. It like
Holy shit, I love that texture. Let me see that again.
it just
I actually bullshit with some of the people at the 40K or the Warhammer stuff I do, and some of them are kind of that way as well. Like some of them are like, oh, I don't think I am. I look at their army, and it's like all full of like friggin' anthropomorphic things. I'm like, this is otherwise. It's like, don't judge me.
Yeah.
I'm not judging.
My favorite was there's this dude who's been a friend of mine. He's a friend of mine's brother, and he's like super anti-furry, right? Because he thinks furries are all about like sexual stuff and stuff like that, and he doesn't like super sexualized things. And he made an NFT recently of the Doge dog, but it was anthro, and I was like,
oh, cool.
I was like, so you're making anthro dogs? He's like, I mean, we're making Dogecoin NFTs. I was like, isn't that like furry art? I thought you didn't like furry. No, this is different. I was like, no, technically, that would classify you in the category.
Funny enough, like I'm trying to even remember when I first heard actually the word furry and such, and I'm having problems remembering like where. I don't think I heard anything about that really until probably like when you got turned in like 20, like after I got out the service bit. I was just like, I popped in, I was just doing some stuff. I just got the VR because I spent a lot. I'll be honest, I spent a fair bit of the money when I got back on like the headset shit and such.
It was like an early.
I got on, and that's when I started hearing it.
Late 90s, early 2000s is whenever I first started hearing it through the Gina, because I had a comic place where, you know, you get Marvel comics and stuff like that, and I saw one that was called Genus, Genus. They don't make them anymore, they're out, and they were just exclusively furry comics. That's all they were. They were shorts. They weren't even full comics. They were just like little shorts stuck in there. And I used to subscribe to that every month because, you know, growing up with Disney and stuff like that, that was just the natural progression, I guess.
Mm.
And I guess to kind of touch on one of the last questions that come to mind, not in a bad way, we talked a lot about kind of the sexual part of the furry fandom, but like in the more normal sense of just the dating scene within the furry fandom. Not all the crazy extreme side of it, but just like, yeah, the more mellow, normal aspects of it. Do you find it to be a good place for dating?
It's about normal. I mean, you get your crazies and you got your like sweethearts and you got anything in between, you know. It's really like just like any normal like dating app, I guess. Except that the people are already interested in kind of what you are. So you already know going up that you're not going to like, because a lot of the problems like in like normal dating apps, say if I was in a normal dating app, which I've been in normal dating apps, telling somebody else that has no idea and thinks that like the stereotype of a furry is the bad stereotype, telling them that you're a furry they automatically think that you're like screwing dogs or whatever. And you're like,
Right.
no.
I ran into that problem.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I try to explain to them. They're maybe this will work. I'm like, oh, cool. You're not gonna give me a second to fucking explain anything, are you? It's like, nah. One did not. They just kind of dipped, and I was actually kind of thank God because it was one of those situations of, these pictures don't add up. One of these things just doesn't belong here. So that was fine. The other one was kind of sad actually because she was kind of cool, but that one was more of a she kind of understood it, but she didn't want to be part of that, I guess. So I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
That's the other thing too that like gets weird with like people that aren't into the fandom, like, because then it's like I'm really into it, and like they don't want to go to like conventions with you because they don't want to be around because they think, you know, the typical there's nothing you can do to tell some people that like the stereotype is not real because they just believe it is. They believe that every one of us is some weirdo that, you know, screws animals or
I mean, there's a small batch I still don't say anything to, but that's like the hunting group that I go with and shit. Because there's a lot of like people that are older than me. I'm like, even me being like, I'm like 31 and shit, but all these guys are like in their 50s area or so. So my whole thing is kind of looking at them. I kind of see the situation of if I say anything to them, it's either I'm going to be harassed for the rest of my life because that's how they go. Literally blood in the water. They are going to just mess with me every day and night. I'll come in. They'll be like, "Oh, hey, the dog here. Hey, have a beer." I'm like, "Oh, cool. I don't need that." So
yeah.
like, there's some badgers that they don't know shit.
They don't know anything.
Because I'm like,
yeah. I agree.
It's one of those bits.
Like you tell some
like,
friends and you don't tell the others. That's
yeah. Especially like I think for the most part it's good. Like my stepbrother and such. I told him one part because at one part we were roommates and at the time he didn't know. And then basically he's really quick. He's really quick at switching over when I was drawing. So he just surprised me one day and he saw it and he's like, "Oh," just instant like response, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah." He's like, "Cool. I'm gonna go play Zelda now."
yeah.
So that's the thing. Actually, most of my family just really doesn't care. They're like, "Oh, that's neat," and just moves on. So there's a lot of people like that though too. They're just like, "That's your own thing. It's kind of cool," but they're not gonna jump on it.
And I guess for you, Zero, there's one thing that did come to mind when you were talking about the previous thing about like
Victory.
Dating normies that don't want to go to conventions with you. Going forward, for your future partners, do you feel like your partner is almost required to be a part of the fandom because you don't think it'll work out with someone who is a quote unquote normie? Or
well, I had a really well, I thought I had a very lengthy relationship with a normal I guess that's not the right word to say. I had a lengthy relationship with a non-furry, and it went nice.
Yeah,
but
there's no such thing as normal in my book.
Yeah, everybody's weird in some way. I mean, you got regular people that go around like screwing dogs and touching kids. It's not even like in the furry fandom, you know. But now I tend to just exclusively look for other furries to date because instead of having to explain it to somebody that's probably not interested into it and it being a big part of my life would be like, that's pretty much saying like, I'm cool with you, but I don't want anything to do with this huge chunk of your life. So just either don't talk to me about it or I'm not going to be present during it. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah, that was,
no, I'm kind of in the same bit now.
And yeah, for you, Mister, it sounds like you've had success dating non-furries. Is that right, or do you also prefer?
I've dated like a certain amount. Like it's been like basically probably 8 in my whole bit, and a big batch of them and such were not, they did not know about the fuzzball stuff, or if they did, they didn't care. Sadly for me, it's just like, most of them had to move somewhere else. Other ones are just other bits. Right now, I'm kind of at the whole part is like I just been more focused on trying to take care of my own self because I'm a heavy believer that if I'm not all set up and ready, I'm not gonna bring anyone else in and such.
Yeah.
So until I get a few other things going, then from there it'll probably be one of those like, okay, cool, guidelines. They have to be okay with me doing the fuzzball stuff, and they have to be okay with me little stuff. Other than that, we'll work with the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty simple. Cause like hell, there's probably people that they come up and they have their own crazy hobbies and shit. And the biggest thing I usually try to go with is accept. It's like, okay, cool. As long as they're not doing anything that's gonna put me or them in jail, okay. Well, for the most part, I mean, I don't know. So I'm not. It's not hard, really. Most of the time, they just kind of chilled there and they just talked with everybody because their whole thought was, and kind of like best way I could try to explain it is like, it's a hobby. It's just a different type of hobby. Okay. So it's like, that's all it is to me. I keep things kind of simple when it comes to this kind of stuff. I don't really look too heavily in depth into it because then that's where people try to find the little cracks and try to open them up and make it a big deal when it doesn't really need to be. So I usually keep things very simple.
Yeah, accept this hobby of mine and we're good.
Yeah, basically. Oh, I'm running out of coffee.
No, coffee's good.
This is saddening. Oh well, yeah, I'm on West Coast, so it's it's a little earlier for me.
Yeah.
All this said, I mean, those are kind of all
What
the
up, Born?
questions that come to mind. I always kind of end these, random questionnaires by simply wondering, if you could say one thing to the world, what would you say? It could be about one of the topics we talked about, or anything else that comes to mind.
My fellow dumb fuzzballs. No, I'm kidding. That's a terrible way to start off. I don't know. Wait, like literally like for. Okay, sorry. All right. Go over the question again. What am I exactly trying to say to everybody?
Just like one last final thought.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. Okay. I guess basically just keep an open mind and realize that there's people that like things that you may not, and vice versa. Just basically that. Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. And for yourself, Deluxe.
Hold on.
I think probably like that's been like the abbreviation I've been going off of for most of my life ever since I heard it.
Just like, basically like just the lack of understanding and awareness about the furry community and its values might cause people to mistakenly believe that, that we're the bad guys or that we're weird or whatever. They just need to be more open, less closed-minded. I mean, we're just people like everybody else. We just happen to like anthropomorphics, and and really, in the long run, everybody at one point when they were a kid watched Looney Tunes or Disney or something like that. So, in a way, kind of made everybody start out this way.
Yeah, now I'm a fucking furry.
Neat.
You always get
I
tourists.
like it. Well, thank you for taking the time to answer my super random questions. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
No problem.
All good. Hell, I'm just vibing. Like I'm.
What steps can the VR chat community take to increase understanding and acceptance of furries?
One possible step for the VR chat community to increase understanding and acceptance of furries is to host events or discussions dedicated to educating others about the furry community and their interests. This can include inviting established members of the furry community to share their experiences and perspectives, as well as addressing common misconceptions and stereotypes. Additionally, promoting a culture of respect and inclusivity within the community can help create a welcoming environment for furries and other marginalized groups.